is Reva Chambliss. I'm Vice Chair of the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee, sitting in for our chair this evening. Our first item of business is, and this meeting is called to order. Our first item of business is Dakota Land and Water and People Acknowledgement. I will do that. Oh, right here. The Metropolitan Council acknowledges that the land we currently call Minnesota, and specifically the 7-county region, is the ancestral homeland of the Dakota County Oyate, who are present and active contributors to our thriving region, as part of the Metropolitan Council's commitment to address the unresolved legacy of genocide, dispossession, and settler colonialism, and the fact that government institutions, including the Metropolitan Council, benefited economically, politically, and institutionally after the forcible removal of the Dakota Oyate. The Metropolitan Council is dedicated to instilling land, water, and people commitments in regional policy. These commitments support the Dakota Oyate, the 11 federally recognized tribes in Minnesota, Ho-Chunk Nation, and the American Indian communities, representing over 150 diverse tribal nations that call the 7-county region home. We have a few items on our agenda, and I don't see that we need to make any changes, so we will consider the agenda approved. And at this time, I will request approval of the February 23rd, 2026 Transportation Committee minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Councilmember Carter and Councilmember...
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Osmond. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. I understand that we do have public comments. If you would like to speak at this committee item, you can provide comments on any item on today's agenda. Please provide your name, the name of the organization you represent, if applicable, and the item to which you would like to address the committee. Is there someone for public comments? Michael Wright, are you here? Please come up to the dais. And welcome. You have 3 minutes for your comments.
Michael Wright, Wright Telematics, Minnetonka, Minnesota. This is my wife, Barbara. She'll be speaking on my behalf today.
Members of the council, I'm Michael Wright, a legally blind Metro Mobility rider, and I'm here today on the clock. I want to state clearly for the record, I am not an attorney and this is not legal advice. On February 25th, we showed the full council how systemic ADA capacity constraints are violating federal law. On March 4th, we warned the TAC about severe cybersecurity liabilities of your current unencrypted tracking app. Today, in the spirit of collaboration, we're speaking to you about risk management. Metro Mobility recently failed a legislative audit. Continuing without a viable and immediate remedy is a catastrophic liability. When the DOJ steps in, transit executives face lawsuits, ruined reputations, and lost jobs. Here is the actual cost of ignoring these paratransit constraints. Washington, D.C., sued over paratransit failures. Penalty, a $14 million hemorrhage with a federal court stripping executives of their autonomy to dictate how $12 million of their own funds were spent. Chicago, sued over service. Penalty, payouts up to $5,000 per plaintiff and a court order to distribute 150,000 penalty ride vouchers. New Jersey Transit, DOJ intervention. Penalty, federal mandates forcing the agency to cannibalize $18.6 million from other transit budgets. Honolulu, DOJ intervention. Penalty, executives lost control, local control, and were placed under strict federal monitoring. San Francisco, paratransit failures. Penalty, the city had to publicly apologize and place their primary contractor on a strict 90-day cure or terminate notice. We want to prevent this from happening in Minnesota. We want to be absolutely clear about our intentions. We have zero interest in replacing your current contractors. We work for you. We only care about telling riders where their ride is and giving the Met Council an immutable record so as to avoid future failed audits and to help mitigate potential class action lawsuits or other litigation due to ADA violations or other presently unforeseeable offenses. Transit Tracker acts as your definitive truth layer. Your staff can run reports for the legislative auditor instantly. By providing absolute freedom of information, we remove litigation liability because our GPS data cannot be manipulated. Currently, drivers use paper on clipboards to log rides. With an error rate of up to 4% across 2 million rides, that's tens of thousands of corrupted records costing countless hours in reconciliation. Furthermore, when riders aren't waiting in the cold, they don't board angry. Less verbal abuse lowers driver turnover. Since it costs up to $8,000 to replace one driver, retaining your workforce with a live map is a massive financial win. We're offering a $15 per month per vehicle solution that installs in 60 seconds. The budget exists, and it falls completely under your RFP threshold. We're ready to do business immediately to protect this agency and serve your riders. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation. I know you have, as you stated, we're here, we've heard from you before. We've recorded that information in today's information.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. With that, we have reports. Our first report is from the Metropolitan Transportation Services Director, Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. A lot of tonight's topics are about affordability and usefulness of our transit system, and these are important measures of how we plan for the region's future. We are a region that is easy to drive to different destinations compared to others. We're actually in the top 5 for destinations you can access in a work commute. By 30 minutes, you can reach over 1 million jobs in the region, and that's largely a combination of our job centers, our limited congestion, and our extensive freeway network. But many people don't drive, many people cannot drive, and it's not a sustainable choice for the future. It's also not a sustainable choice for many families' budgets. And what is at risk of sleep, we can reach destinations, but affording the means to do so is slipping away. The price of gasoline increased 11% this week due to global oil disruption. The price is around $3.25, which is 42 cents higher than last week and 61 cents higher than last month. But fuel is just 1/7 the price of owning and operating a vehicle. Auto insurance has increased almost 60% in the past 6 years. Car repair costs have grown 70% since 2020. The average price of a new car is around $50,000. Depreciation costs almost $4,500 a year, which is only a third the price of gasoline. Registration, taxes, parking costs, and other fees mean that the typical cost of car ownership is $10,000 to $12,000 per year. So the opportunity to drive less, the opportunity to reach more destinations, the opportunity to accessibly connect to work, to loved ones, to destinations in your life is significant, and the chance to move from in a household 3 cars to 2 cars, 2 cars to 1 car, 1 car to 0 cars unlocks significant additional opportunity to invest in education, in retirement, in travel, in other things that can provide a much higher quality of life for individuals and then build a more sustainable, connected region together. So we're looking forward to hearing tonight's topics and advancing tonight's business. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Any questions? Very good. Good news. Our next report is from the Metro Transit General Manager, Leslie Conderas.
All right, thank you, Chair Chambliss, council members. First, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the appointment of Joe Dotseth to the Metro Transit Chief of Police role. I think most, if not all of you, received the regional administrator's message earlier today, but I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate Chief Dotseth. Thank him for serving for over a year in that interim role. That's not an easy spot to be in, but also to thank the entire police department. Transitions add just that much more on top of an already very challenging position. And our police department truly continues to go above and beyond to ensure the safety of our employees and our riders. So just wanted to start off by acknowledging that announcement that came out earlier today. And then looking ahead over the next week or so, just a couple reminders. On March 14th is our quarterly service changes. This committee received an update on that a couple meetings ago, maybe just last meeting ago, but just wanted to share that that is going into effect on March 14th, this Saturday. With implementation of those quarterly service changes, we will have implemented over 40% of the Network Now service improvement framework. Looking ahead to next week, a week from tomorrow is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. As we have for many years, Molson, Coors, and Miller Lite are sponsoring free rides on transit starting at 6 p.m. on St. Patrick's Day to the end of service. In addition to that, we are offering some extra light rail trips that evening for people who are out celebrating. So we're looking to get the word out that that is a safe way to travel on St. Patrick's Day for those who are celebrating. And then finally, next week, a week from Wednesday, March 18th, is the National Trans Employee Appreciation Day. I mentioned that in my previous reports, the last couple Transportation Committee meetings, but just once again wanted to invite all of you to join us out on the system that day. We'll be out as part of our monthly Great Day in Transit, connecting with our frontline employees and celebrating the great work of transit employees throughout our system. Also on the 18th, during your Committee of the Whole meeting, we'll spend a few moments at the top of that commemorating Trans Employee Appreciation Day. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair, but would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that report. It is a very good news to hear that our interim chief is now our permanent chief. It's a great day to celebrate. And I'm looking forward to Transit Employee Appreciation Day and participating in that activity as well. Any other comments on that report? Thank you so much. Next, we have the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of committee. My name is Abel Mumbi. I believe we have a PowerPoint.
Okay. Take a moment to get that PowerPoint loaded.
While he works on that, hi, I'm Andrew Boardman. I'm the Assistant Business Agent with the ATU 1005 with Abel.
No, go ahead. So while we wait for the PowerPoint, so my name is Abel Mumbi. I'm the Director of Bus Maintenance, but also co-chair of JLMC with Andrew. Andrew is a new face. We give a quarterly update. Usually I had Raphael with me. Andrew is taking the place of Raphael. So part of our responsibility as a JLMC is to give you a kind of brief of what we're doing. So when the PowerPoint comes up, I'll just speak to it. So the last time we were here, we did speak about our pilot that we're doing on the barriers, or 2 barriers that we put on buses, 2 types. So those are 5 each, so that we have 1 in each garage. That is ongoing. The operators are looking at those. We're in the middle of waiting for feedback from them. A part of a plan is that as we allow the operators to operate the buses with them, we'll also create opportunities where we'll put buses just staged so that people that might not be operating those buses can get the experience as well and provide feedback as needed.
Yeah, the part of the goal with this is to come up with not only a baseline barrier to use, but also so we can have either our people internally or some of our vendors work to actually make these barriers much more protecting of the operators. So it's not just the barriers we're going to be trying out, but then we're also going to be working on modifications to actually protect the operators fully instead of having all these gaps that they can get around. And we're very excited to work on this with Metro Transit.
All right, in absence of the PowerPoint, I'll keep going. One of the things also that we gave an update on last time we were here had to do with us working on self-reporting. So that work is still ongoing. There you go. Thank you. All right.
You didn't memorize them?
Yeah.
On this slide, you can see the two barriers we were looking at. If you get a close look at them, you can see there's still gaps around the fare box in some areas, which will have to be modified. That's kind of what I was saying with our existing barriers. They would need modifications too. So we want to make sure we have the best possible foundation before we begin that part of the project.
One thing I'll add on here, and we hope that we'll be able to report on this on later meetings, is that our own employees are also working on their own prototype to see whether or not we can have a better security for operators beyond what's been presented here. Go ahead.
This was me. We're glad to report that the bus and rail ASPs have been signed. And the committee has been committed to proactive safety culture. We're still working on some of the policies, but we're pretty happy that Metro Transit is working with us and the JLMSC is coming together, both management and the union, to come up with a better safety culture.
All right, I have this slide here. This is just acknowledging officially that Raphael is no longer the co-chair. Andrew is now the co-chair. I would state for the committee, Andrew is not new to the JLMSC. In fact, he's been on the JLMSC for a long time. So him and Raphael just switch roles. So we're not starting over. We are just continuing with just different responsibilities there. The other thing that the JLMSC did was to look back of the our KPIs for the previous year. So the JLMSC has a chance to look at all the data that we go through, whether it's data around safety, around operator or transit worker assaults, all that the JLMSC had a chance to look through so we can give feedback. Also part of a JLMSC is setting the goals for the upcoming year. So all that was done at the end of the year.
So we appreciate your time, Madam Chair. We are open for any questions you may have, but also to bring back to our committee, if there's anything you would like us to report on regularly when we come to you, we're also open to that. That was one of the specific asks of the committee before we came here today.
Wonderful, and welcome to the chair role, and Andrew. Any questions, comments? Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, my question would be, if we look at cities like Chicago and Milwaukee, in terms of driver safety, in terms of driver injuries or on a job, connected to having a barrier or not having a barrier, or having effective barriers, I would say, how do we stack up?
So I'll take that for part of, I'll answer it this way in terms of comparing the two agencies. We have not reviewed data that shows how Chicago and our agency compares. But that is something that we can ask for the data to review and report on our next meeting. We would be interested to know how how we compare. But one thing I'll say to this committee is also depend on the type of barrier that they have. Because our barrier that we have currently in the system are not the ones that we're piloting, but the Bentex that we have probably have the less protection to the operator than you have on the market there. So we'll look at what Chicago is using, but we'll also have to take in consideration what type of barriers they're using compared to ours.
In conjunction with the ATU International, we have been able to look at a lot of the data they've collected on their larger project doing the same thing. They have shown, I can't quote any numbers because, but they have shown that barriers installed and used properly do have a reduce in injuries, assaults with injuries specifically. But I don't have that data. I can get it for you. That's a massive amount they have available to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Obasaka.
Yeah, very similar to what, so I'm looking at the other side of this, and I think my colleague probably brought this up last time. Should the bus, Lord forbid, have an accident, is the barrier going to be a barrier in terms of looking at the firefighter lens, getting the jaws of life? Do we have to do that to get the driver out, or is that too early to, depending on the barrier, I'm assuming, if my English is correct?
Yeah, so part of what we need to consider, obviously, there's multiple entry points. One is the barrier itself. You can access the barrier from the outside. Obviously, we don't want to broadcast that, but there's a way to access the barrier from the outside. But also, there's the other things that we need to consider about the window side of things. You know, we are still considering to figure out what kind of solution that we can have for that. But yes, it is a concern that needs to be considered, that if somebody's in there, they're not able to respond, how do we get to it? And that information, as far as accessing from on the barrier side, we can provide, and we'll have to work with the manufacturers as far on the window side of things.
We can also get the data about that too, as far as that goes, because that has also been collected by Toronto's Transit Authority. So we can get some more specifics on that, but all the barriers are designed so that people can get out too. It's not just to keep people in, but yeah, they thought of that.
Okay, because the firefighters will not like that.
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just briefly, it's good to get extra information. And I would assume that as part of all of this, the peer and competitor regions that have similar transit systems like ours, you know, the vendors that you're working with or the people who are designing this are drawing from some of that, I would assume. And I would also assume that there are minimum safety requirements that you yourselves are trying to achieve in all of this. So if you are bringing additional information, one city or one instance is good. But if there's, and I don't want to make you do extra work because I have a high level of faith in what you're doing. But if there is data out there, is it Portland or is it DC or is it Chicago or is it some other region out there? And that's why we're part of the association that is a national association, and they might have data if it's needed. So thank you. I think you're doing great work. I appreciate the spirit by which everybody's working together. It hasn't always been that way. So on behalf of me, myself, and I, you guys are awesome. And just really have our full support in the work that you're doing as you move ahead.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not believe we have a TAC report. So with that, we will move on to our non-consent business, as we have no consent business items. Our first item for non-consent is 2643, authorization to hold public hearings on the proposed fare policy changes. And we have with us Tom Randall and Dustin Crescini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council members, it's good to be with you again to talk about our fair policy initiative.
It's this one, I think.
Oh, that one? Our summary today, our proposed action, our ask, is that the Metropolitan Council authorize public hearings to accept comments on our proposed fair policy changes. We'll go through an overview of some of the topics we covered before. I just want to go through those briefly. A fair policy defines how much customers pay and who pays. It's not been updated frequently here at Metro Transit, the council, 2008-17, but we did have an update in 2025 was our most recent one, and now a proposed one in 2026. It's the council's role established by statute to establish and enforce fair policies, so that's why we're before you. And we are updating it now with new capabilities through our fair modernization, where our aim really is to simplify the fair policy, increase understanding, address customer ride patterns that have changed over time since our last fair policies, utilize and leverage the new technologies that we are putting in through our fare system upgrade. And one thing that we're not trying to do is It's not focused on substantially increasing revenue or reducing revenue. We're really after the customer attributes and the customer experience here for the fare policy, in addition to equity and safety for our operators, as we just spoke about. The summary of what we'll be going through today is we'll go through the proposed fare changes. We have some comparisons for the micro transit in other areas, locally and nationally. We'll walk through estimated revenue impact of these policies and go through timeline and next steps. If there's no questions, are there any questions after that? No questions? Great. I'll turn it over to Dustin Christini to walk through fare changes and the microtransit fare comparisons.
Thanks, Tom. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So in this slide here, we're kind of outlining the proposed changes that we have. We're presenting for public comment. So they're broken down into two phases. We have phase 2A, which will be happening in 2026, and 2B, which is planned for early 2027. The working group really worked to develop these recommendations with the customer experience in mind, with that intention to enhance that customer experience and make it easier for our customers to pay. So we'll just touch on these very quickly, going from top to bottom. And if you have any questions, I know this is kind of a big topic, so please feel free to ask any questions if they come up. So number one here, we're looking at reducing the base fare here. So in particular with Express, we're looking at consolidating that to a $3 all-day fare, along with the consolidation of the reduced Express fare being a $1 all day. Currently, that's only during non-rush for the reduced fare category. Number two, we're looking to standardize the reduced fare programs as well, so kind of consolidating our youth and senior, our limited mobility and TAP kind of all together. Again, leveraging that $1 Express fare for the all day, for all day. Number three, we're looking to expand the youth age range. Currently, that's ages 6 through 12. Our recommendation here is to make that 18 years of age. So running that from 6 to 18, that also be able to take advantage of the $1 youth fare with that. And number four here, we're looking to establish a separate Metro Micro fare for Metro Transit only. We're looking at eliminating kind of the two peak and off-peak fares there and going with a recommendation of a $4 fare and a $1 for TAP. That would include transfers to and from the fixed route and would not include any of the institutional passes, any of our period passes, and we would not allow for fare capping on that service. Before I move on, are there any questions about that?
No questions.
No questions, all right. So if we take a look at our kind of regional landscape for our micro transit and on-demand services, we have a high-level snapshot here of kind of what that looks like. At the table below here, you'll see that we have kind of our Metro Micro for Metro Transit's proposal at the top. We have our regional providers below that. And for comparison, we included Metro Mobility and Transit Link there as well. So as you can see there, there is a bit of variation kind of across the providers on the pricing. We can also see that there's a lot of, there's no consistent ability for the riders to transfer across our providers as well. If we take a closer look at kind of what is similar and different between the Metro Micro service, Metro Mobility, and Transit Link, we do see there are some similarities and a little bit of differences there. We can see they're all a shared ride experience. And we can also see that Metro Micro and Transit Link are more of a curb-to-curb service, whereas due to the nature of the pair service, Metro Mobility is a door-to-door service where they actually come into your home if necessary and make sure you're able to board the vehicle securely. One of the biggest differences I think that we can see there too is that Metro Micro, unlike Metro Mobility and Transit Link, Metro Micro has a on-demand scheduling service, whereas you would have to book your Metro Mobility or Transit Link ride a little bit in advance, I believe up to 1 day for that. And finally, we received some questions as we kind of went through this process about how this all kind of stacks up against Uber and Lyft. And, we took a very close look at that, and we searched for rides at different times of the day, at different distances, back and forth, for several days. And the first thing we noticed is that there is no ride that's going to be less than $10 before any sort of fees or gratuities that would happen as a part of that. And unlike our services, Uber and Lyft, it's typically not a shared ride service, and it is on demand truly in its sense with a very minimal wait. So it's not really a service that compares well to our Metro micro services. It's just kind of on its own, and a lot more. You're paying for convenience at that point. So that's where we had the question, and we thought it was very interesting, so we looked into that. So we found that very interesting to find that out. Any questions on that?
Any questions? No questions, but I'm glad that you brought up the kind of looking at it compared to Uber, Lyft. The $4 up to $5 for the Prime service. It's still a lot less and provides a lot of, good options depending upon the need and the location.
Okay. Taking a look at the kind of micro and on-demand service fares across the industry, we see some similarities in that landscape as well here. We noted that of the kind of agencies that we looked at, that many of them have similar or the same fare cost as their fixed and local route services. And we also noticed that many of them also transfer to and from their fixed route services as well. So that was actually nice to see that we had some commonality there when we looked at that across the industry there. Any questions on that?
Just going back a little bit. So the qualifications for TAP, could you briefly state what the economic qualifications for TAP are?
Madam Chair, council members, I would need to double check that. I know that's changed in the last few years, so they've broadened that ability and broadened those criteria. We can definitely summarize that and get that back to you on the TAP criteria.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Maybe just, Madam Chair, just Dustin, Tom, just to help for the committee's understanding, your presentation talks about transfers to and from fixed route, but as I understand, the proposal is that there would not be transfers between micro service. So if you could say what exists today and then what is proposed, so that like a round trip, for example, as I understand it, would be $4 for each one-way trip. If you could just speak to that side of it.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, council members. Yes, the proposal, we're proposing that it includes transfers to and from fixed route, but yes, we would be eliminating, currently you can transfer within a microservice and across microservices if you time that well. We're trying to kind of get away from that and, kind of highlight the premium service, so it would be more of a one-way trip with the allotted transfer time of that 2.5 hours to fixed route to finish your trip there. So we would be eliminating that piece of it with that.
Thanks for that clarification. Any other questions?
Anything else? No? Thank you for that. So returning to our proposed fare changes here, we're looking at Phase 2B in 2027. These are our technology. These are our proposals that kind of are really reliant on our technology. So once we have our technology, or our fare collection technology in place, we would introduce fare capping in both of our fare sets for a daily and monthly increment as well. Also in 2027, with our enhanced technology capabilities, we're also excited to be able to launch a new payment method, which would be open payment. And so this is where riders can walk up and tag their credit card, their smart device, their cell phone, and be able to ride with very limited thought to that. And so it allows us to remove kind of any of the kind of barriers for paying their fare. They can walk up and not to think about that. We'd also offer, it would function just like a regular GoTo Pay card would. They would be able to take advantage of fare capping and all the services they would have with their GoTo card on their account on the Metro Transit website. So really excited about that. That's kind of a big thing. And so that's what I'm personally very excited about, and I think that's going to be quite well received when you can just walk up and tag your pass there. So.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have asked this in the work group meeting. So you have your credit card, you want to tap it, and how does it know that it's you? because it's on file and it recognizes it? Or you're using an app that's storing it in your wallet, or, how does that work?
Madam Chair, council members, I think there may be two parts to your question. So the first part, if you have a mobile wallet, like on your cell phone or on my smartwatch maybe, that functions just like your contactless credit card would. So that would read the same way, that would work the same way.
Right.
Our system will take that information and create your account basically for that, which would be recognized similar to your credit card. So we know that card number, that encrypted card number, belongs to Tom and Dustin, or Tom. It belongs to Tom, and he can take advantage of that. And if they're working on a fare cap, it'll track that in the fare capping, or it'll also make sure if there's a pass associated with that would be there as well. So.
Just to follow up, so you do have to have a smartphone or a phone that has the app with a wallet?
Your phone would have to, Madam Chair, council members, your phone would have to have a current mobile wallet. So it would have to have the mobile wallet feature that's current to several revisions of standard operating systems on mobile devices. But I believe, you do not need to have a data connection for that now on some of the modern phones. As long as your wallet is up to date with the current credit card, it'll work until that card expires.
And Madam Chair, and if they don't have those things, then what do they do? Again, if we're just looking at a lot of people we serve, and as we were talking about earlier about how expensive things are, whether it's cars and gas or technology, or, I've got a great iPhone, and there are times where I'm like, I cannot connect. And so how are we going to manage, A, for the folks that don't have any of that still need to ride and take advantage of this, and how do we track it? And B, can somebody still just use a good old-fashioned credit or debit card at the site? Or does it have to be through the wallet?
Yes, Madam Chair, council members. So yes, I want to answer the second part of your question first. So if you have a regular contactless debit card or credit card, you can walk up to any of our devices on the bus and tap, and you'll be able to go about your day.
And it will recognize so that it still doesn't exceed the cap?
Yes, yes, correct. The second part of that, if we do not have access to a mobile wallet or a mobile device, we will continue to offer our contactless card. It's the go-to card currently. It's going to be rebranded as the go-to pay card. It's just a new card technology. It'll look a little bit different. We have a new fancy design. They'll be able to load fares, load fare pass programs on there and fare value, stored value, and be able to use that on their for their riding.
And then one last thing, if I may, Madam Chair. And do we know how many potential users need to change something about the way they pay in order to take advantage of this? And I'm sure there'll be the ramp up in public education and all of that, but do we have any data on how many people might not be quite there yet? Or is it just similar to kind of how we operate now where you can get, the go-to card?
You take that one. Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, it'll work just like the go-to card does today. You can fill it up, add value to your card just at the places you do today, and even more places because you'll be able to do it easier on your phone and those kinds of things. And a contactless credit card will work there too. And we'll also accept cash. You can go up and obtain a card at some ticket vending machines, and it'll distribute a card to you.
Okay.
Which has value on it already.
One more question. And from somebody who works at a place where we take credit cards, who pays the fee, the user or us? Because they're anywhere from 3 to 5.5% on average, and so that's got to be factored into the net expense.
Definitely.
To somebody.
Definitely. Users do not pay that fee, and they do not currently pay for any go-to cards as well. Okay. So the internal media, and there's no extra fee attached to that use.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank
Very
you.
good questions, Councilmember Johnson, especially because, those are things that people will be thinking about, because sometimes when you use a ACH card or something like that, there's a fee attached to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's good news.
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, council members, thank you for that question. Well, I'm sure we highlight that in the information during our public hearings, of course. Okay, thanks. And overall, we did a bit of a budget analysis on this. Now, it's hard to get exact on these things, so we're calling this a budget, overall budget analysis. On the activities that are changing, that'll be paid for a little bit differently, not as many monthly passes up front and pay for by ride. So we're expanding these payment options and we're simplifying the process to hopefully increase participation in the system. But like I said, maybe a time or two ago, just these policy updates, we don't really use them to predict additional ridership at this time. We understand conversion rates, but we don't see in the industry a lot of hard data that would say just a fair policy change like this would bring on tons of more riders. It'll make it easier for the travelers that are coming just to town, just to tap their card, but we don't know that that'll increase ridership overall. So we just wanted to be clarifying that. This is a simplification and understanding direction. So overall, the proposed fare policy changes, they're estimated to reduce passenger fare revenue. This revenue is just received from the passenger payments by approximately $375,000, which is about 1% of the current passenger fare revenue collected or budgeted for this year. Next page, we have a bit of a breakdown on these. Some we were able to estimate, some we just weren't. Our first change, the eliminating the Peak Express and just going with a base fare of $3. 84% of the riders currently pay $3.25, so their fares will be going down, and that results in about $153,000. Standardizing reduced fares, a little bit fewer customers on the express routes there, so that's a smaller decrease. The increase of youth fare age, we would love to be able to predict those additional benefits to those older students or youth, but we don't gather that age-related data from students or from anywhere else really, so we're not able to pull that data to predict something there. The Metro Micro, we just have a limited data set on that. We've had one zone running for a few years now, and a couple more are added recently. So we have four startups in 2025. So we need some more analysis, and we need to resolve the gaps in our data. Over time, we'll be able to do that and come back with a better understanding of how that works for your information. The fare capping monthly was calculated off, well, these are the passes we are sold now, and here's the change in price. And if everybody that buys a pass today earns one tomorrow, this is what it'll look like, a bit of a decrease there. Same for daily. Initial boardings greater than 2. After 2 boardings, initial boardings, that excludes transfers, initial boardings, of course. After 2 rides, then the rest of the day is included in your daily earned pass. And the estimate, that's how we come up with the estimated total of about $375,000 annually, about 1% of the budget. Any questions or clarifications I can provide?
Any questions? None.
Okay, thank you. For the next steps on public outreach and timeline, I'll turn it back over to Dustin.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, we'll touch quickly on kind of how we're going to gather feedback. We're presenting this to open up public comment, so we will start that the day after our council hearing, the 26th of March. We will host 3 public hearings, 2 in person and 1 virtual. And we'll leverage all our digital and printed assets through all our various channels to make sure we get the communication out, we get the education out to our riders here. One thing I do want to mention, though, in regards to our public comment hearings, in the business item, we do outline the dates for our in-person here in St. Paul and one in Minneapolis. We just want to be transparent that with the events of the last few months, we don't know. We hope we're going to be in a good place then. We just don't know what the environment will look like at that time. Mm-hmm. So we will be prepared with contingencies to make sure we can still host that, maybe in a hybrid fashion, or, maybe changing the venue if necessary. But we are planning to move forward with these public hearings. We just want to make sure that we're prepared in case we need to change that just a little bit and adapt to any unforeseen circumstances that may arise between now and late May there, so. Yeah. Moving on to our timeline here, we're here today as Transportation Committee. We'll be moving forward to the council on the 25th. We'll open up our public input period between March 26th and May 26th. And then between May 4th and May 15th, we will hold our public hearings. We'll take some time after that from the 22nd of May to June 30th to kind of review the public comments and make any adjustments or have any discussions from anything that we receive that needs to be reviewed. And then we will be prepared with our final approval here and our Title VI analysis on August 10th and August 26th for Transportation Committee and Council respectively.
Any questions on public hearings?
Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. I think I asked this in the policy work group meeting, and I'm sorry if I forgot. Is this the same technology that the suburban transit providers are using? So that as they go off their system into ours, I should know this, I know that, but, and their fares will still be their fares. We're not syncing up with them. I'm just trying to think about the rider who's moving into different jurisdictions outside of Metro Transit.
Very good. Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, the system will be used by all the regional providers. The fixed route fares are set by council policy, so those fixed route fares will be the same between all regional providers. The Metro Micro fares are individually set by regional provider, so the technology will be there, but those entities will still set their own fares and policies for the micro transit. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, that does. And then the only other question is, you said you had 2 meetings coming up that you're kind of still working on, one in St. Paul, one in Minneapolis. Is that correct?
We have them, Councilmember Johnson, Madam Chair, we have them scheduled, and we will just, we will hold to that schedule. If events change where that's not, conducive to an in-person meeting, then we're developing alternative plans for that.
And the reason I was asking is, well, where are they in Minneapolis and St. Paul? And are you planning to do any in other cities, in suburban communities for riders?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, right now we have the Minneapolis Central Library on May 5th, Tuesday, May 5th, and one of the rooms there. And then for public hearing in St. Paul on May 6th, May 5th, May 6th is at the St. Paul Library here from 5:30 to 7:30. We will have the 3rd public hearing as a virtual. We are working with our outreach team for any other additional efforts, like on a different location, or maybe we need to have a pop-up somewhere. We're still working through some of those details on the ancillary events for that.
Madam Chair, I would just suggest, wherever there's, of course, a concentration of people that you can get access to, but I know there are some really good routes that are, moving between the core cities and suburban communities as well. And, I don't know, we don't all represent suburban communities, but if there's a logical place, I'm kind of West Metro, so Brooklyn Center or somewhere else in the other parts, I just think, I don't know how many people you're gonna get to something like this to begin with. I know it's an attempt, but just always putting in another ask to keep in mind if there are ones outside of the core cities.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Councilmember Pacheco?
Sure, Madam Chair, members. Have you, or do you plan to hold any of this information in other languages, Spanish perhaps?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Pacheco, yes. In fact, we had a brief meeting with our communications team today. They were working on the translations of the information as we speak, absolutely.
It's great. And one of the things you consider, and maybe it's for all businesses, is that is a way to communicate to the employee and employers. we're finding, especially recently, is that the employees do look at their bosses or others for information. And so if we can, the better we can get information to organizations that serve the populations, better.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Pacheco, yes, definitely. We have a lot of great contacts with, say, our MetroPass program, our schools, college programs, and we look to those points of contact there for our information distribution. I think they do a really great job at it too, so you appreciate the comment.
And thank you. And to the point, I mention this in a lot of different presentations, but every time I do, the staff and the organization here has looked into it and has been able to accommodate it. So it's not that I just want to keep pulling it out there, but be clear when you say that, because I know you all are doing a good job at it.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair.
Councilmember Johnson.
One more suggestion, and I haven't been able to get to one of these meetings in forever, and I really enjoyed the meetings, but the 494 Corridor Commission was really positioned to help larger employers along the 494 loop. And I know they still meet regularly because I have to decline their meetings, unfortunately. But I know they were always interested, and maybe they still would be pushing and promoting this with their employers. I can only imagine employers are still offering transit passes. I don't know anymore, given the whole world we live in now, but hopefully they are still. So I'm sure then this would all be plugged into all of those ways to let employers know who are paying for transportation services for their employees. That, I don't know if it really makes a difference or not, if it's employer sponsored, but I don't know if we've communicated with them any of this.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson, yes, well, I'll highlight that specifically for our team. They've looked into so many areas that they just don't mention because they do it all the time. So I have a feeling it's being covered, but definitely we'll follow up on it, make
Thanks.
sure what their determination was.
Sure, thank you.
Absolutely.
Very good questions. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Just two more here. Key points, changes made are making riding Metrotrans easier. That's our goal, and better meet community needs. We spoke about the changing patterns, et cetera. Ease of payment, yes, promote new and more frequent ridership. We don't see it as a cause for more frequent or more riders. And the Metropolitan Council approves of fair policy changes and want to emphasize 2 phases for the implementation. One will occur shortly after eventual approval, because those are the things that aren't technology dependent, and the others will be implemented a bit later, not years later, I hope, because the project falls off, but it'll be a bit later when technology is set, tested, and pilot tested, and all the kinks are worked out before we introduce the new technologies to our customers. If we're watching fare capping, then we're counting people's trips and money spent and those kinds of things, and we want to be spot on and give them all the ridership without them having to be concerned about it. And the last page is just we restate what our request is for the Metropolitan Council to approve the proposed fare changes to be open to public hearings in the near future.
Thank you. The proposed action that the Metropolitan Council authorizes public hearings to accept comments on the proposed fare policy changes described in Attachment 1 to this business item. Is there a motion? There is a motion by Councilmember Obasaki. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Councilmember Pacheco. Any further discussion? With no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have an additional business item, which is 2026-48, joint item, 2026 business budget amendment, first quarter. And we have Heather Giesel presenting, along with Kristen Prescott. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. My name again is Kristen Prescott. I'm Acting Finance Director for Metro Transit.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. I am Heather Giesel, the Director of Finance and Administration for Metropolitan Transportation Services.
So today we're here to present business item 2026-48JT. That is the Q1 carry forward budget amendment. And as you can see, it's a pretty lengthy business item. So we're just going to kind of grab a couple of highlights and then open the floor for any questions or comments. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start for Metro Transit. Under the capital budget, some of the highlights, we have an amendment that includes an authorization of 82, I better put some glasses on, excuse me, 82.6 million. This is about 46.2 in federal, 32.2 in RTC funding, and 7.2 in state funding for 85 hybrid 40-foot low-floor replacement buses. These buses are in alignment with the Metro Transit planned fleet replacement cycle. For Metro G-Line, we are requesting authorization of 41.1 million, which includes 33.4 million in federal funding and 7.7 in regional sales tax. This is to encumber 24 buses for the G-Line, as well as non-fleet construction and equipment purchases. And then the last item I wanted to highlight is for our Bass Lake Spur State of Good Repair. We are requesting to have authorized 5.5 million in regional sales tax for the rehabilitation of the Bass Lake Spur rail segment, as well as addressing critical repairs to the freight rail. All these projects that I mentioned are in the 2026, the 2031 capital improvement plan. And then for the operating budget, we are bringing in an additional 7.8 million in sales tax funds for our bus operations due to our Metro motor vehicle sales tax forecast being less than anticipated for February.
Thank you.
Any questions for Metro Transit side?
Thank you for those highlights. Any questions? Councilmember Carter.
Yeah, as far as our sales forecast, if we look at the next 3 years, are they trending up? Are they seeming to trend down?
Do we know that?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Carter, I believe we have a forecast into the next 2 bienniums, I believe. I don't know if Stuart or somebody from the budget office will come and give a more thorough presentation on the February forecast. But it's MVEST looking up, sales tax looking slightly down is kind of the overarching theme. Anything to add?
I know you don't have a crystal ball.
Any other questions?
No.
I mean, no more than a couple of years into the future, so.
Correct.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so transitioning over to the MTS portion of the amendment. In the new projects and increases and decreases, we have 2 projects totaling $2.6 million for midlife rehabs and engines and transmission replacement, as well as swapping the remaining RTC balances for MBTA and Southwest Transit to utilize MVEST funding rather than RTC. This is as part of our, in preparation for their transition to direct recipient status. So they are not able to use council RTC funds, so we are swapping that out for motor vehicle sales tax. Staff has also identified 20 projects totaling $12.9 million that are in our ACP that are fully expensed and can be closed. Transitioning over to the operating budget, in special transportation services, the amendment authorizes a revenue reclassification for Metro Move based on guidance from state auditors, and also includes the capital cost of contracting swap for contracted services. This is where we take swap capital funding with operating funding and vice versa, allowing us to utilize MVEST funds for engines, transmissions, midlife vehicle rehabs, and suburban transit provider projects that are not eligible to be funded with regional bonds. It has no impact on the regional MVEST allocations, the reserves, or planned capital projects. And then finally, in the pass-through section, The amendment authorizes $1.4 million in sales and use tax revenues and expenses for the Travel Demand Management, or TDM, pass-through grants, as indicated in the 2025 Omnibus Transportation Bill, for funds that will be allocated in state fiscal year 2026. And then, as Kristen had mentioned, the transportation budget has been updated to reflect the new forecasted amounts for both MVEST and regional sales tax, or sales and use tax, from the February 2026 forecast. So if there are any questions, we can stand for those now. Otherwise, the requested action is the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2026 Unified Budget Amendment as indicated and in accordance with the attached tables.
Is there a motion to approve the 2026-48 joint 2026 budget amendment item for the first quarter?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Carter. Any further discussion? With no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. And that completes our non-consent business items. And we thank you for your presentation. And next, we have information item on the annual ridership update.
Good evening, Madam Chair, council members. I'm Rachel Dunca. I'm the Senior Manager of in the Office of Performance, and I'm joined here by my colleagues Joey Reed and John Harper. John Harper from MTS. Joey Reed is also a member of the Office of Performance. We have three things to tell you about today. The first thing is just an exciting modernization of a method on how we count ridership. And then we're also going to talk, and that's what I'll cover, and then just the general facts and figures of 2025 ridership that John Harper will discuss. And then finally, Joey Reed will end the conversation or the presentation with a summary of just some of the analysis and trends from 2025. So as I mentioned, I would just briefly describe the modernization of the way in which we're counting rides, just as a mini history lesson of how we've counted rides in the past, before I explain to you the new method. So there are three different ways we've counted rides for fixed route service for Metro Transit and the council. We've used APC devices, which are automatic passenger counters that are installed on every single one of our fixed route buses for the Metro Transit and Met Council. We've also used data gathered from fares, and fares, I mean that in a really broad category. So whether it's from the GFI fare box, Cubic card readers, you just heard a presentation about the Cubic modernization, ticket vending machines, mobile apps, lots of different ways of paying your fare. And so that's one way we've thought about counting rides or use that information to count rides for regular route bus. We've also used humans to manually count for special events and other items. Obviously, that's not a scalable method, but is definitely helpful to validate our systems. So what we're moving towards in this modernization is really using all the APC data as the primary source of all of the ways in which we count ridership. And really, we've been introducing the concept of a unified APC method. So that means we are using the same approach. We start with our APC data, and we clean and fill it in the same manner for all of fixed route. That provides us an ability to present data more accurately and consistently over time, and also just immediately disintegrates any differences due to method changes across providers, or in this case, Met Council and Metro Transit. So we've been really busy in the last quarter of 2025. We recertified our APC devices. That means that we looked at manual counts and made sure that they're within the realm of allowable difference as described by the FTA. We did that for both Metro Transit and MTS. We are two separate entities report in terms of NTD ridership. And so that also means not just, I've really been focusing on ridership here in this conversation, but it's also about how we report passenger miles traveled, so the number of transit miles that our passengers take each year. That's another item that we report every year and is directly derived from ridership. One thing to note is that Maple Grove Fixed Route is actually, that data is reported under the Metro Transit NTDID. And so we are really updating both Metro Transit, Maple Grove Fixed Route, and MTS Fixed Route ridership reporting with this new method. We can go back with this, using this method back to January 2023. The reason I point that out is this presentation is using that method for the year-over-year comparisons. So that means the information presented today is really focused on the actual changes in ridership, not changes that might be a reflection of a change in method. So that means all new figures, because in previous years, we've used the fares as a way to count rides for fixed route. And so now, using this unified APC method, we have revised figures. I want to clarify here, there's a difference between what we're presenting in this presentation and historical NTD ridership. In 2024, we used a previous method, and it was certified by the FTA, and it was a valid method, and it was accepted. Now, in 2025, we're using this unified APC method. If I go to the next slide, it kind of just describes that there's a table here that shows, these are just sample figures for the NTD reporting. So in the 2024, we reported around 47 million. And this year, 2025, we're reporting around 50 million. This is for Metro Transit fixed route service. Those precise numbers are the ones we report to NTD. What's important to note here is that really, even though those methods are different, if we use the same method of counting between 2024 and 2025, we see a very similar trend, which is a 3 to 4% decline. So although we are changing our method, the trends remain the same. And so kind of the key message here is, in this presentation, is the slight decline in ridership, and more details about that. So with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, John Harper.
All right. Thank you, Rachel, and good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I will restate what Rachel said just a minute ago, just to be clear, and that is we are comparing 2025 ridership to 2024 ridership using the APC method. So this is not a change in method. This is a consistent methodology between the years. And as Rachel mentioned in her portion of the presentation, overall, we are down slightly in 2025 compared to 2024. And this slide shows you here that that trend really has been consistent across the year, that we are down just a little bit between 2024 and 2025. When you look at the modes of service, we look at this whenever we do this presentation, and the local bus is always the workhorse of the agency, carries about half the rides. We typically, light rail is the second highest ridership. We can see in this presentation that our BRT service is gaining in market share, or in share of the service we are delivering, the rides we are delivering. And so that is becoming more and more important as an agency for us. And then the other modes that we deliver are also here, but they carry much smaller portions of the service overall, or of the ridership overall. When you look at the modes of service, you can see here that we have slight increases or decreases, except in two of the areas. Number one is our light rail ridership is down by 14%. The Metro Micro service in particular is up. It's obviously a much smaller number, but up, and we'll break that out in a slide in just a moment here. But you can see overall, other than those two pieces, the change is relatively modest across the other modes of service. So if you take bus ridership and you break it out into its component parts of local, BRT, and express, we are seeing a shift. Joey will talk in much more detail about this in his part of the presentation. We're seeing a shift from local service, just the generic local service that we put out, to the BRT service that you can see here. And then express is up slightly. I guess 10% is not slightly, but express is up as well. So you can see those numbers here. When you break down the demand responsive ridership, there are 4 programs that we operate as Met Council. 2 of them fit into the special transportation category. That includes Metro Mobility and Metro Move. I'll refresh for the committee that Metro Move, that Metro Mobility is our ADA service that fulfills the federal and state requirements to do our Americans with Disabilities Act service, complementary to fixed route. We introduced about a year and a half ago, Metro Move, and Metro Move is also special transportation, but it is tailored specifically to customers who receive waivers from the Department of Human Services. We have moved people from our Metro Mobility service onto Metro Move, and you can see here that most of what is happening between those programs is a shift between one program and the other. And so that's within our special transportation program. We have 2 general public programs, Transit Link, which is our traditional schedule ahead demand response program, and Metro Micro, which is a much more focused on demand microtransit program, which is scheduled in real time. And we have seen very modest growth in our Transit Link program. Our Metro Micro program here is up significantly. I will bring your attention to the fact that we added 2 zones in early 2025, January of 25, and 2 more zones in September and October of the year. So we have significantly more service available within that program, and that's what you're seeing here. We are planning to increase the program by 2 more zones each of the next 2 years. So you'll continue to see an increase in that program itself. So that breaks down the demand responsive programs that we operate as an agency. And so this final slide in my part of the presentation brings in the regional providers. So those suburban providers and the U of M that operate service as well. And I will reiterate what Rachel said early on in the presentation, and that is, this is by NTD report, and so Maple Grove service is included in the Metro Transit number, which on this slide is in the Met Council total. So the Maple Grove line here is their demand response, their microtransit program only. So about 200,000 additional rides are delivered by Metro Transit for Maple Grove, and that shows up in the council line. And so you can see here what is going on across the region by the other providers as well. And with that, I will hand the presentation over to Joey to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, John. As John mentioned, ridership has been down slightly consistently throughout the year. I think January and February, we saw the largest declines over 2024, shown in the gray bars, and the blue bars are 2025 ridership. We think some of that has to do with ridership declines on light rail in the beginning of the year. Later in the year, things looked a little more consistent. We even had an increase year over year in October of 2025. Very small. Breaking out by our sort of modes. Again, we opened 3 BRT lines this year, which is very exciting. I think a record for us and probably will last for a while, a number of BRT openings in a year. But in order to show how those work, I've split them out from the BRT group. So Route 21 and B line are grouped together so we can compare 2024 to 25. Same with Route 6 and E line. And then Gold Line is a new service entirely, so that has no previous ridership. But we're seeing growth, on both the B line, the E line, and the Gold Line, as well as Commuter and Express, which John mentioned, and then slight declines on the previous RTO BRT service. So A line, C line, D line are down just a little bit. Again, the biggest driver of change year over year has been the decline in light rail ridership. Some of that is due to construction and Renew the Blue campaign. So while some of those rides are made up in the bus category with our replacement bus service and people switching over to complementary routes, those numbers don't show up in the light rail category. Some of the biggest changes since 2024, I've already mentioned a number of these, but I want to add Orange Line is up around 95,000 rides year over year, and Route 94 around 83,000 rides year over year. So that's great growth. And then C line, D line down slightly, as well as Route 10. Biggest changes. Okay, so key takeaways. Again, ridership is down slightly over 2024, with most of that change happening in the beginning of the year. Light rail ridership declines have been driving the overall trend, whereas B line, E line, and Gold Line openings are leading to growth in our bus system. We've also seen small gains in the Commuter and Express routes, and those are really led by Route 94, which is making up around almost 50% of the ridership gains in Commuter Express.
Okay, thank you. Did I hear you say that Route 94 was over 90+%?
No, sorry.
It was hard to.
Yeah, Madam Chair, council members. Nearly 50% of the ridership gains in the Commuter and Express category are on Route 94.
Okay.
Almost half.
Thank you. I do have a question, and it's kind of because we have added a lot more connections with Network Now buses. We've added BRT and Metro Micro, increased express service. Do you know if that would have an impact on light rail ridership, because they have other options that may be more convenient or quicker?
Madam Chair, council members, yeah, we think having additional options can lead to more use overall and can lead to substitution. So if people do have options other than light rail, they may use those instead. I know a number of people who choose Route 22 over the Blue Line, for example. But overall, more options generally leads to more ridership overall.
And Madam Chair, I'll add to that, if I may, that the service areas where we place microtransit, Metro Micro, are not service areas where there's a lot of other options, a lot of fixed route options. So like Woodbury Zone, you can connect to the Gold Line, but we are not substituting microtransit in place of any other mode. Also, microtransit is a very low ridership mode. We have, service in a lot of areas, but 5 buses in each zone doing demand response service does not carry a lot of ridership when compared to light rail service, for example. And so increases of percentages, I don't remember what the number was, 58% or 60% in Metro Micro is a much smaller number than other numbers you're seeing within the report. It serves a great niche for us. It serves areas that are hard to cover, but it is not a high ridership kind of service for us.
Good point, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for those great questions. Couple of questions, and not that they can be answered tonight, but Met Council released its highly subsidized ride report to the legislature that was mandated last session that we do. And I know that's getting a lot of attention from suburban providers, because I'm hearing from all of them right now. Does any of this factor, any of the data we have, things that are especially where ridership is dropping, do we have routes in that report, I'm assuming too, that might fall in that category or are tipping into that category? I don't know if it's your work, because this seems separate from that, but I'm just curious, as we see some declines, it might also then be shifting to just other modes. The subsidies per route start to change too. So I'm just trying to figure out if any of this is showing up, whether it's in the report to the legislature or anywhere else, as we try to watch the subsidy in our routes or corridors. Doesn't have to be answered right now. That was a loaded question, let me tell you.
Madam Chair, I could address it briefly,
Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson. So within this ridership report is all of the routes, all of the modes. That report to the legislature is really focused on high subsidy bus routes, and these are bus routes that operate with per passenger subsidies 60% or more above the peer route average. More than 97% of the council's investment in service is not in that category. There are a handful of routes. There's one express route and a handful of local routes that primarily provide a coverage function that are in that category and that we are taking various steps to address. One in the 2024, this is all based on 2024 data. One of those routes we moved in December to become a contracted transit service. So it went from directly operated to contracted transit service. That will reduce the cost and address the high subsidy. So there's various ways that we address this topic. And while those rides are part of the total agency ridership, our management of the service happens through kind of a separate process to address those routes.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I thought of it too was just as we move into more suburban communities, because we too are a suburban provider, I'm just wondering how those routes might compare with ridership, because we don't have stats here on the suburban providers. Don't want to open that up tonight. It is a can of worms, but it's just, I think oftentimes people forget that Metro Transit also provides suburban transit. And so I'm just curious as to how some of those might line up with increasing ridership, if they can connect into the Gold Line or some of these other new routes that we're doing, or if we're seeing a peeling back. And I think it's also interesting, and I'm just saying things, I'm not trying to draw conclusions, but we also have the data on how our riders feel about the different modes, whether it's BRT, light rail, or regular route. And clearly, people feel more safe and comfortable on bus. And so I don't know, when you're talking about upheaval in communities and uncertainties in communities, if that is impacting ridership on LRT. And I know, we've had the upheaval, especially this last, not last month, 2 months ago. But, are there temporary things that are causing some of those shifts? And we mentioned, the Blue Line repairs and all that was moving people around. So again, not for tonight, but just those anomalies that maybe aren't a full trend. They're the blip, they're the thing. Just always curious in those types of things.
Madam Chair and committee member, I can, if I may add a little bit to what Charles has said as well, and that is, as we're implementing network now, some of the service we are implementing is further out into the suburbs, or maybe in places that might be a little bit speculative. And as we implement those, we monitor those to see how they, whether the ridership, we're getting return on that investment or not. We do have to give those investments time to develop, and they are, I don't think we're calling any of them demonstration, but there is a demonstration period that routes, must go through in order to develop ridership for people to not buy the car and, turn to the bus in certain cases, for example. And so, I can think of a few that we have delivered under contract, in a smaller bus, in a more suburban environment. And we do monitor those as we go across time for new services or adjustments to existing services to make sure that if they aren't returning on the investment, we look back at them and make modifications. We are doing that on an ongoing basis.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, and just to add to that, I think it does, some of these areas where we have, bigger or smaller numbers could deserve like a deeper dive into the analytics and what the needs are, what the obstacles are, and things like that, that we could maybe better understand. Maybe we'll find that, it takes a longer time to move from car-dependent areas to areas where people start taking public transportation more often. Any other questions? Councilmember Carter and then Councilmember Osmond.
Okay. My question is, we're becoming more and more, in the past 5 years, at least more of a nation that telecommutes more so now than we did in the past. And does that tend to affect suburban areas more in terms of use as opposed to the areas where you may have more blue-collar workers? White-collar workers being more maybe in suburban areas?
Madam Chair, council members, we're definitely seeing a shift in commute patterns and travel patterns overall. I think it's a little blurred because commuters boarded both in their home communities and then their work communities, and so when we look at general ridership patterns through space, we see it down in both places. But I do think that market is not coming back as quickly as many of us had hoped, and as we see return to work mandates roll out, they're not very fast, not very heavily enforced. So the prospect for the next couple of years is probably not like a strong return to work, or certainly not to 2019 levels.
Good question. Other questions? Councilmember Osmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I always curious when we have plus and minus numbers. So my question is, how we doing comparing to the other region and other agencies when it's come decline ridership? They have also similar decline, and by how much?
Madam Chair, council members, I love that question. I do like to occasionally bring back a peer comparison to the committee. I didn't do that this time, so I'm not really prepared to answer exactly that question, but we have, I guess about a year ago, did a comparison to other peers where we found that some were doing better, some were doing similar, some similar issues. I know a lot of agencies are facing fiscal cliffs that we're avoiding, so we're able to maintain service in ways that others aren't now. So that may be a big difference in the next peer comparison. I'd be happy to bring that information back in the future.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, and again, not trying really hard to not go on a tangent, but if the bill that has a hearing in the legislature and the Transportation Committee passes, it will mandate that suburban providers go away starting July of 2027. My assumption would be then that Metro Transit has to pick up all of those areas with their service, which we've done suburban transit in other places. I don't know if we can, first of all, I oppose that. Second of all, I don't know if that's even possible, if that's the intent, or there's just no service at all in those communities for those providers. And additionally, for at least the Highway 55 corridor group that I was on, where I'm very excited that Metro Transit will be running regular route service, frequent regular route service, starting in 2027 between Minneapolis and Plymouth. A lot of that was predicated on what the suburban provider could and would be doing, bringing riders into that corridor. Also, Metro Transit has a really great relationship with, I would say, most of our suburban providers, because they're working and I think have been ahead of us on micro transit and connecting people into our system, the Metro Transit system, for those fixed route rides throughout the region. So I guess all I'm saying is, while we're studying ridership, they have a white hot light on them right now with ridership and subsidies. And I don't know, even if it was taken away from suburban providers who are very nimble they keep an eye on the routes that need to be moving around, if new employers are coming in town. We know there's a big growth corridor up 94 right now for new companies and new investment needing workers from, quite frankly, all over this region and really the core cities. So I guess all I'm here to say is that as we look at all of this, and there's a major bill sitting out there that a year from now could make, well, 2 years from now could make this look different, I just want to be convinced that if legislators think Metro Transit can provide all of these suburban communities with some sort of decent transit, what would ridership look like in the future? None of us can answer that, but it's a big concern of mine because it will have a big impact on ridership that is trying to get into Metro Transit service as well. So I'm going to leave that there. If you represent any suburban communities or want to learn more about it, please do, because I think in the past there's been efforts to do this, and I'm a little worried it's picking up steam. I'm sure there are many people at Met Council who believe differently than I am, because we want to provide regional transit to the whole region. The reason that these communities were allowed to opt out in the past was that they were paying into the transit system without receiving any service at all. And my big concern is that if their systems have to shut down, I don't know what is going to happen with their facilities, their assets, any of that, how all of that gets disposed of or taken over. And nobody's going to stop taxing them for transit. So I'm putting that out there for fellow council members, at least because this is the Transportation Committee. And we're talking about trying to get more people into all modes of transit in our region. And there's a lot that is unsettling, and this one, to me, is greatly unsettling. So I'm just putting that out there right now, because there's an expectation that we put routes where there's the best ridership and the least amount of subsidy. And if that would mean peeling back service to communities that they wouldn't have what they have at this point in time, that is deeply disturbing to me. So I'm saying that tonight. It's not really relevant, but it's tangential to this, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Thank you.
That is a mouthful.
It is. You can tell I'm really ready to go.
Consider, Director Carlson, do you have anything?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilmember Johnson. There has been a bill introduced. We're familiar with the bill. We're reading the bill, and it was introduced today. We're learning, beginning to learn about it. Within the bill, there is a requirement that we enter into agreements or make reasonable efforts to enter into agreements with the contracted providers of each of those systems. So much like we operate contracted transit service across our Metro Transit service area, we would be operating contracted service in those other areas. The bill also requires that we would operate substantially similar service for a minimum of 1 year before any other changes could take effect. So during the transition period, which wouldn't even begin until the middle of 2027, that service would remain in place as is.
For a year.
It would be operated by the council rather than being operated by the replacement service municipalities. So lots more to come on this. Tonight's not a discussion of that bill, but specific to your question, those are two things that the bill does indicate. And again, the bill hasn't even been heard yet, so we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Pacheco.
Madam Chair, and this one might be another one, like, there's no answer, but if you could, or if we could, determine the impact of ridership from the ICE invasion in the sense of people who are giving people rides versus getting on a bus. My son has some employees that he would have to pick up and bring back, and that was very common with a lot of the places. And there was people, there was a young lady who was at this hearing I was at the other day, and she was taking a lift to work, being at work, taking a lift home, knowing that she's not going to make more than she did, but she didn't want to lose her place in work. And so that's how kind of more of an extreme of going, not taking on a bus or staying out in the public. Either that or just staying home. And so I don't know, so maybe a month and a half, 2 months, or whatever, how we would be able to measure that, but if it was there, that'd be great, so we could show what's the impact really is.
Yeah, Madam Chair, council members, certainly something we're looking into. Again, this report only covered 2025, so first quarter ridership will probably reflect that, and we're doing our best to be able to identify those impacts separately from any other impacts on ridership in the system and long-term trends. So that's going to be some work, and we hope to have something to report to you eventually.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that information item. More to come on that. And I see that I would like to suggest that we have 2026-43 go non-consent, and then the other item, 48, go consent. Everybody's okay? Good.
What, it's a
That's
joint?
it?
It's a joint item, so no.
Oh, that's a
So
joint.
we don't have to worry
Joint
about it.
item, sorry. Just the 43 non-consent. All right, that's the last item on our agenda. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.